Oh! Yeah, nearly missed the runway there. If I ever do miss this chair one day, fall on the floor, I promise to upload it. Yeah, I'll make sure everybody sees it. Kerplop, right on the ground. Can't see the forest for the trees. I wanted to do a type of freeform video on field theory. This is Dr. Oleg G. Jefimenko's book. This is one of them. 2 PhDs, extremely brilliant. Despised Einstein. Yeah, he wrote quite vociferously against the nuances and sillinesses of relativity and quantum. However, he did it in a professional manner so he could keep his credentials. This is what a lot of the PhD people do. They kind of are passive-aggressively attacking one another. Very, very brilliant. Of course, this is my copy. That's one of my copies that's completely falling apart. Even though he's so brilliant, can't see the forest for the trees. Love his work. And I'd like to do a free-form discussion on field theory here. And he very brilliantly is an expert on the writings of James Clerk Maxwell, who himself was a genius, but also, too, couldn't see the forest for the trees. Maxwellian field equations are wonderful. However, they never define a field. They tell you what a field is, relative resultant effect, measured in joules, watts, volts, amps, so on and so forth, over a period of time with a specific vector. But they don't tell you what energy is, and they certainly don't tell you what a field is. So if you actually ask a PhD, he says, what's a field? 99 times out of 100, they'll point you to Maxwellian field equations. It's like, well, sir, that's wonderful, but Maxwellian field equations don't tell you what a field is. And these people never ask themselves the biggest questions. You must fundamentally start with the correct premise of natura naturans, or Mother Nature, in that there can't be the 5 of this and the 4 of this, and there can't be electricity over here and gravity over there, magnetism over here. Completely ludicrous. Everything is one. It's like stupid children, of course, trying to separate out things like ice, water, and steam, which, of course, are just different temperature, pressure modalities of water, right? So they're completely confused. I mean, they have correct equations, which correspond with resultant effects, as defined by Maxwellian field equations, but they themselves can't tell you what's going on. They can tell you how much an adult Clydesdale horse can pull as far as weight, but they can't tell you anything about what a horse is, the essence of a horse. Same is true here. They can talk about the resultant effects of fields and their equations, which there are a lot of equations in this book, some of which are way over my head. I mean, they're just multi-page equations. So how could somebody that smart be so stupid? This is a distinction between episteme, empirical knowledge, and, of course, wisdom. You know, and of course descriptions are not explanations. And that's all math ever is a description of the mechanics observed and the repeatable mechanics that are observable. Anyway, here we have him saying, neither Maxwell's field equations nor the solutions indicate an existence of causal links between electrical and magnetic fields. That's because electricity is not something autonomous. It's the result of electricity and dielectricity working in unison in a form that we actually call electricity. Charles Proteus Steinmetz actually said that in Electrical Discharges, Waves, and Impulses, page 14, that electricity is overtly complicated as a result of dielectricity and magnetism working in unison in the field phenomena that we call electricity. Same is true of gravity. The phenomena of gravity, of course, is undeniable. That is undeniable, that phenomena. But is gravity something autonomous or different from dielectricity or magnetism? And the answer is no. There's no such thing as magnetic attraction. That's just dielectric acceleration. So-called gravity is non-point source. Mutual mass acceleration towards the lowest vector between two masses. No two masses ever accelerate towards one another. In other words, the same thing we call magnetic attraction, which is not magnetism at all, is the exact same thing we call gravity. Electricity is a hybrid of dielectricity and magnetism, and we can reduce it even further by stating the simple fact that, of course, the geometry of magnetism is the toroid, which is the negative image of this, the hyperboloid or the hourglass shape. This specifically is the vector of inertia and acceleration. This is also, too, the vector geometry of two masses. Say we have two masses over here. They're actually vectoring towards the lowest null pressure point between both. Negative image of a hyperboloid is a torus. Negative image of a torus is a hyperboloid. This is the geometry of counter space, or inertia and acceleration. And torus is the geometry, the three-dimensional geometry, of force and motion, i.e. centrifugal divergence. So, anyway, brilliant case in point here. Sorry, I have the flu. You don't mind if I take a sip of something really quickly, do you? I'm recovering from the flu. I'm going to edit that out of this video. Sorry about that. I've been pretty sick for over a week there. Also too stressed out, worn down, and wore out. That's what happens when you work 7 days a week to 4 o'clock in the morning. Therefore, we must conclude that an electromagnetic field is a dual entity. There are no dualities in nature, so that's a mistake. Dual entity, always having electrical magnetic components simultaneously created by their common sources, time variable electric charges and currents. Now, time is how you actually introduce a hysteresis disruption in inertia. And this occurs two ways. You can induce it, like we do with an AC generator, which doesn't generate energy at all, and manifest it, and there's a huge difference. The other one is actually primordial and innate to the absolute, the extrinsic attribute of the absolute. It's a neat little secret the ancient Pythagoreans, and who knows before them, discovered a long, long time ago. It's a secret revealed in Plato's Republic 509d to 511. My discovery, it's tattooed right here on the inside of my right wrist, talking about extrinsic aoristos dios, or the extrinsic attribute of the one, or the agathon. Just as illumination is the light, the inseparable wholeness, or holos, between the absolute, that which is most simple, and its attribute. So there can exist sourceless electromagnetic fields, whereas according to equation 528, such fields are impossible. Anyway, I have all these great underlinings here by one of the most brilliant, to me, the most brilliant field theorist. Well, really the most brilliant is Maxwell and or Steinmetz, but modern day field theorist. I wish he was still alive. He's not alive, unfortunately. I wish he was still around. Faraday, who is the originator of the concept of the magnetic field, which he described in terms of magnetic curves, three-dimensional force vectors, actually, extrapolation of the toroidal geometry of magnetism, are present-day magnetic lines of force. He never, however, as much suggested that the induced currents are a result of changing magnetic fields. On the contrary, clearly associated the phenomena of electromagnetic induction with changing electrical currents. This, again, is a disruption in history, of the ether, in which we introduce time to cause a disruption in the inertia, which we call ether, we can call it counter space, 0-point energy, I don't care which, but all these really, really important factors that I have actually earmarked here by such a brilliant man, and he himself acknowledges that neither he, and at least he admits it, he doesn't pretend he knows the answer, because he doesn't know the answer. He says, we don't know what these are. It doesn't make any sense. One is not, you mess with this one, and poof, instantaneously over here, this one appears. But there's no causal link. In other words, they have a great mystery here, and they don't know. According to these equations, in time-variable systems, electromagnetic fields are always created simultaneously. That's because electricity and magnetism are one and the same thing. Magnetism, loss of energy or inertia of the dielectric, and electricity is a hybrid phi times psi and Q and Planck of electrification between dielectricity and magnetism. In unison, we call this electricity, or the electric field, because they have a common causative source. Not causative source. You can't say illumination is being caused by light. That's not a causative source. Causative source of illumination is light. No, it's not. It's the extrinsic attribute of same, an inseparable wholeness. That's like stupidly saying that water is the causative source of wet. You stick your hand in this wet stuff, water. Well, the causative source of this wet, sloppy stuff is water. It's like, no, it's not. It's the attribute of water itself. Once created, the two fields coexist from then on without... See, there's not two fields. There's just one field under different modalities of stress and strain. A hyperboloid versus the torus are not two different things. They are one thing under different expressions of stress. Mother Nature literally is a hairy armpit chick with muddy feet. My point in pointing out this book, and you can see how many times I've been through it because it's falling apart, and it's really, really, really brilliant, he points out all the stuff that Faraday and Steinmetz and Heaviside didn't understand. And it's good to not understand something and to point that out. It doesn't make you look stupid. It makes you look smart. It makes you look wise. The reason for that is this neat little thing is that no one ever goes looking for answers to the questions. They think they already know some hubristic, puffed up, I know the answer to that. One of the most brilliant videos, and everybody should watch it at least one. I think it's like 7 minutes long. Type in Feynman explains magnetism. Feynman. Feynman, sitting in the back of a high chair guy. What is magnetism? Well, blah, 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 blah. He basically says to the other guy that he's not smart enough to understand it because the answer is too difficult. He swiggles and squirms in his chair. He talks about an old woman slipping on the ice. This is the guy that all these relativists and quantum weirdos look up to as their god. They do! Richard Feynman. Type in Feynman explains magnetism. I dare you to watch it. There's 1 million copies of it on YouTube. It's in black and white. No, it's not in black and white. I've seen it several times. It's not. I always think it was in black and white. Anyway, it's like 7 minutes long. Tell me if you think he explains anything in it. The point being, and I love this book because it points out, it's like, well, we don't know. This doesn't make any sense. Basically, is the academician's way of saying, we don't understand this. We don't understand how this one thing spontaneously appears out of nowhere, and we don't get it. Also, this creates a serious issue with instantaneous action at a distance. It creates serious issues with all sorts of neat stuff. I love it when academicians admit they don't know things. I need to stop opening in this book. I'm trying to talk to you. I'm going to point out some of the other incongruencies that he points out that don't match the equations. Equations, I don't know of no equation or any attempt at any equation which attempts to differentiate out principle and attribute from something that is an inseparable wholeness. The reason why these people keep looking for sources of causation, and this, of course, is the fundamental flaw of all creationism, is chain of causation or original sin or first cause. There's none of that in Platonian emanationism. But Platonian emanationism is no different than true field theory. Mother Nature has no dualities. I point out to you a key aspect, too, of quantum and of relativity. By their own admission, they will tell you that everything they think they understand about their universe, this universe, is based upon their understanding of the nature of light, but they have no idea what light is. Light's not a wave, light's not a particle, light is not a duality. There are no dualities in nature. Light is not an emission. It's not an emission at all. Light doesn't have a speed. It's a rate of induction or hysteresis of the ether. Nikola Tesla famously said light is nothing other than a sound wave in the ether. Well, sound is not an emission. Nothing emits sound. Sound is a disturbance of the rest of the medium that we call air, nitrogen and oxygen. That disturbance of that rest state creates a perturbation in the medium. That's all light is. That's not an emission. What we have is a disturbance in the medium. Medium disturbance perturbation, i.e. the hysteresis thereof. Maximum rate of propagation, in the case of light, is something we call c. You can talk about the speed of light and the speed of sound all day long, but neither one of these is an emission. There are no dualities in nature. There's no such thing as a wave-particle duality. Light is not a particle. That's based upon rarefaction, compression, observations to the mechanics of light. Wave is not a thing at all, rather what a thing does. There's no such thing as a wave. It's like, this is a wave. It's my hand moving. It's a wave. Yeah, my hand is waving, right. No such thing as a wave. Wave of what? No branch of science has ever defined the term field or the term energy. No branch ever has. Go find an example of it. You won't. You can't. You have to build a fundamental foundation before you go looking to the answers to the things. Say, this is impossible. There can be no dualities in nature, natura naturans, so I'm not going to go looking for it because I know they don't exist. Ultimately, there can't be the 5 of this and the 2 of this, electricity over here, gravity over there, magnetism over here. Ultimately, all these things are just different compression, expression modalities of one specific medium. This makes retroductive analysis and looking for the answers kind of simple, actually. But you still have to have a sharp mind. But this is that lost art of retroduction. Yes, I'm writing a booklet on retroduction. I would have been done with it already if I didn't have to do absolutely everything in my life, you know. Groceries, laundry, garbage. I have to do everything. Literally everything. Which is fine. However, it gets a little wearisome at some points in time. But wouldn't you and everybody else, it doesn't make you rich, it doesn't, you know, make your life palpably, objectively better, like you got, you know, better, more expensive things, but isn't being able to see the universe clearly and simply, don't you find that a boon? You know, just a big plus, being able to see through all the BS and lies, and the fact that everything is simplex pressure mediation, including human emotions. You know, everything either repulses you, or it draws you in, or it stops you. Everything is, even all emotions are a field expression. Except it's a different type of field expression. People think these things don't exist, just like they think the soul doesn't exist either. I ask them to show me the things that have driven the entire world of man. Art and architecture, wars, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff. You can't put it in your hand. You know, fear, love, hate, faith, hope. They're the things that have shaped the entirety of human civilization, from its very best to its very worst. You can't put it in your hand. Can't measure it, can't stick it in a microscope, and yet people think that things don't exist because they can't objectively analyze them. Same is true of fields. Everything is fields, and fields are not particles. But there's really no research into field theory. There hasn't been for a very, very long time. Who's the last person, other than myself, who seriously researched field theory? I don't care, you could say it was Tesla. The last person I know of that exists that actually was interested to know what a field was in itself, of itself, by itself, would have been Faraday, really. A lot of the math developed by Heaviside, James Clerk Maxwell, and Steinmetz is wonderful and beautiful, and they did understand a lot about fields. But they really weren't interested in reducing nature and natura naturans into the most simplex elements. Once you do that and build a correct foundation, then everything else kind of becomes blatantly obvious. At least it has to me, anyway. Explaining, reconciling light and matter. I've succeeded at that, and I've done it. I've reconciled light and matter. I even have the equation for it, which I posted up a couple weeks ago. Reconciled out the nature of light, reconciled the ultimate nature of what is magnetism, because the entire universe, objectively, through mass and magnitude, exists due to magnetism and magnetism only. Correctly explain that, that's wonderful. What left is there? Grand unification? Well, why don't you reconcile light and matter and you fully explain magnetism as the extrinsic attribute of the dielectric field? There's not a whole lot left, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Wisdom is its own reward. And I delight in the discovery of the important things. Things that don't make life objectively better, but they do in a roundabout fashion. You know, everybody else is just out chasing a dollar, and I know they have to feed their families and pay the bills, and I have to do the same. But the wisdom of insight and the fruit thereof is absolutely wonderful and fantastical. Most people never experience it. It's a beautiful thing. Sorry I'm still a little bit choked up with the flu. If I sound a little bit off, I humbly apologize. Sorry I went through this book during this video a little bit there. I love a person that points out the things that they don't know. So what is a field? Very simply, an ether perturbation modality. The unification of dielectricity, magnetism, gravity. It's all very, very, very simple. It's already unified. So human beings have separated them out conceptually. And unnecessarily, too. which just makes human beings a less advanced form of living creature in this cosmos, so far anyway. If it advances any further before destroying itself, that's a matter for another discussion. Happy holidays! Lux Veritas. Goodbye.